right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the TF podcast. This episode is a special episode. We're going to be doing a weekly roundup. I'm excited to have my good friend Matt Case on the line with me. How you doing,
What's happening,
Matt?
sir? I'm good. I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well as well, all things considered. If you don't know Matt, he's very active on the Twitters, a DJ on the radio, and just a good old wholesome dude. We've been doing some fun stuff in the past at our conferences with our Bitcoin trivia that have been pretty fun. We've been thinking about maybe we should bring that on the webs. We'll see about that. But Matt, why don't you just introduce yourself to everybody real quick?
Yeah, so I'm probably the biggest crypto idiot on Twitter. That's fine. I am probably also one of the biggest speculators, and I own that as well. That's why I go to therapy, and it's only a $40 copay, so that's awesome.
Nice.
I got into Bitcoin back in 2017 as this bull run was happening. So I didn't know who to trust, where to go, and what to find out. So I just jumped in. And in the local community here, you were one of the first people. Your conferences, bringing together some of the top minds, talent, and folks in the industry was really, really beneficial. And then just meeting folks here locally in the community, then going to conferences, learning as you do it. And I think that's really the only way you can find out who the good players are, the good actors are, and who are the shitcoin peddlers, you could say, if you will. So, folks like yourself offer a great service, especially with the events that you put on.
Thanks, man.
They have really been huge in my learning curve. So thanks, man.
Oh, of course. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Well, lots of good things. We're moving more things virtually and digitally and so forth, producing lots of good content. So, I'm excited for this conversation. Well, like I said, I just want to talk about what's going on in this world today and what's going on in the news, right? So it's Good Friday. Happy Good Friday to those who celebrate that. And, on this Good Friday, we ended the week with some crazy stuff going on, right? We had $2.3 trillion that came back into... right. Sorry, 2.3 trillion more dollars.
Like this.
Wait, shoot it up in there.
Money gun. There you go. There you go. Here's your bailout. Here's your stimulus.
Oh man.
There you go, Jonathan.
For those listening, Matt.
Doing my
go ahead.
Helicopter money.
Helicopter money. Are those real hundreds?
You know what? They might as well be, right? They might as well be.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the Steve Mnuchin's printing them up, man. My bailout right here.
It's interesting, right? Because on the one side, you want to you think that, hey, these are people that quote unquote know what they should be doing and are pumping money back into the system because in theory, that should, help the system produce. But then you start thinking about wait a second, how are these companies using these funds? One, and then two is the average person, are they getting relief? It's kind of wild.
I think the sentiment is where's the bailout for the average Joe? You know? And I don't think that connection is being made with whoever behind the scenes is making these decisions. Whether it's I don't want to point fingers at the government, but I'll let you decide who owns that blame. But there's a big disconnect, and $1,200 is not going to help folks in the short term.
Totally, yeah. $1,200 once. Is crazy, right? It's not enough. Especially too, it's going to take a little bit for some of these people to get those $1,200, right? And so what happens in the time between the need to getting it? A lot can happen, a lot can change. Wild. Well, we have you're able to do your show from home. I'm doing my show from home. How's that going, by the way? How's the show going from home?
It's fun. It's challenging. It's really ironic because when I was a kid, I was 5 years old growing up in Edmonds, pretending I was a DJ in my bedroom playing records. And now I'm almost 50 and I'm playing a DJ in my bedroom, but now I'm getting paid to do it. So there's a whole lot of Hakuna Matata full circle moment here coming on. So, but it's been good. It's been challenging, but it's been good.
Yeah.
Well,
Matt, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
You go.
I was just seeing this morning, the price of Bitcoin has come down a bit like that.
What's it at, about 68?
68? Yeah. 68, yeah.
Do
you have an entry point, or do you have a spot that you kind of where you're looking at the market thinking where it might go?
Man, I don't, I don't know. I think, well, I don't know. It might not be a popular opinion here, but I think we're still in for overall market downturn, right? I
Mm.
think JP Morgan just yesterday came
Yeah,
out with
Jamie
an
Dimon.
they just came out with an analysis. I'm trying to find it real quick that I think it was something like 20% overall unemployment. And then, you know, uh, basically we're in this for a little bit longer from a financial standpoint. And so,
Hmm.
while I do think it's in the long run, this is definitely great for Bitcoin overall. And I've actually been super impressed with how stable Bitcoin has been, right? So everything went down.
Yeah, you look at some of
Uh,
the other assets.
yeah, stock market went down 30%. Bitcoin went down in half. And it slowly has climbed up, and it's really hung around this level. I mean, it's at like what 7,300 for the most of the week, and down to
Yeah,
6,800. Um,
but then
Frequently,
in that range though.
yeah, that's more stable than we've seen other markets.
Yeah.
So I think that's super interesting. However, like if we get another wave, basically when Q2 earnings come out and everything is just completely wrecked, and people are still not working, and the there's just no revenue coming in for any businesses.
Yeah.
I think that could be a potential where maybe Bitcoin does go down a little bit, not because of any sort of, not because of anything to do with the strength of Bitcoin or any of that sort of thing. It's just liquidity is like
Yeah, people need the money. They
yeah,
don't.
there's exactly, it's just a liquidity thing. I don't think it has anything to do with the value of Bitcoin in the long term or anything like that, though. That's just my
Right.
opinion,
Yeah.
not
I
financial
noticed
advice.
yesterday. Never financial. Just that's why I say I'm a speculator, man. It's just all speculation, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, RSX, which was under, I thought, the guidance of TD Ameritrade for the longest time, announcing yesterday that they are now working. You talk about liquidity, working with our friends over at Fidelity Digital Assets. From what I understand, that is to provide more liquidity and some of the stuff that they do. So I'm guessing that TD Ameritrade, which was bought by Schwab, if I'm not mistaken, they're just kind of washing their hands. Is that kind of I can't figure out. So you interview more people than I do, Jonathan.
Man, I haven't touched on that subject, but that'd be interesting to do to think about it and learn more. I mean, it really does feel though that this is really where Bitcoin shows its power,
Mm,
because of liquidity, right? Like
yeah.
you have anybody that talks about their alts, and I'm not one to shit on alts. I'm personally am not invested in any alt myself, but it's all about liquidity. And
Yeah.
if people want or want to trade that on the Bitcoin side, like I think that's really where that value happens overall. And there's some people that are saying the reason why Bitcoin went down so much in that time wasn't because of, or sorry, was because of you know more like banker hedge fund types having
The
to
sell pressure. Yeah.
sell pressure. So,
Yeah.
which is interesting point, right? Does that mean, and I know this is something that you're, following is, does that mean one that Bitcoin was at an inflated price at 10,000? I don't know. And I should have asked Pierre Richard this. Or does that mean, that basically things are not priced in when it comes to
Right.
the Bitcoin halving yet, right? Which we're like 3 weeks, a month away. So
Yeah. 30 some odd days right now. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I think just my limited understanding of reading the white paper and just understanding the fabric of Bitcoin. For me, when that light went on, that's what made me a maximalist. That's why I'm like, I get that it's a finite resource, that it's digital gold, everything, the entire narrative, that it's easy, it's transportable, it's quick, it's fast. I mean, comparative to quick and fast in blockchain terms, we can dissect that later, but that's a whole other subject. But you know what I mean, as far as the traditional gold asset versus a digital gold store of value as well. And so when you see that this halving is coming up where the supply is going to be dramatically cut. For a fact, supply and demand. I mean, that's just basic. Even like an idiot like me can understand supply and demand. So when I see that, and then I listen to smarter folks that you have on, the TF podcast or your events or, like Pomp, et cetera, all the folks that we follow on the crypto Twitter, and I listen to what those smart folks say. Well, I'm going, maybe then, that's why I kind of think that that there is this scarcity, and that will play out in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were the US is 24 trillion or so in debt.
Yes,
And
now
there's
to
20
today.
and there's 21 billion or sorry, million, sorry, there's 21 million Bitcoin. So
Right.
yeah,
You do the math on that one.
right, right. It's crazy.
I got a
Speaking,
question for you.
yeah, go.
Do you think that there's going to be a time where, and what will it take for folks to wake up to the quote unquote sound money aspect of Bitcoin when they realize this helicopter money that's just going around, that there's nothing backing the Fed, that Bitcoin really is, that the math and the algo has value? When do you think, and what will it take for that awareness to?
Well, you see a lot of people on crypto Twitter saying comments like, "Hey, I have more people ask me about Bitcoin now, right? Like, and
Right.
I've heard about this new Bitcoin." So I think it's events like what are happening now. I think that's one. I think it's also two, as more it becomes more usable or more accessible. So Fold,
Yes.
they just announced their
Yep.
partnership with Visa, right? So for the
Visa. Yeah.
yeah, which is awesome, right? So for those listening.
Crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and like my background is in retail and e-commerce and loyalty, so I'm a huge fan of what they're doing, and so to be able to get cash back on Bitcoin back on
Right.
a credit card transaction is very interesting, right? And so partnership with Visa, BlockFi is actually doing something similar as well with that, and so I think it's having those types of things. When you have the folks at Lolly who are doing similar, and
Right.
Storm is also doing similar, right, where you get that cash back. So I personally believe commerce is like one of the biggest entry points for it.
Drivey. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, like this quote unquote free money or free reward system, like why wouldn't I want something free returned back for me as a loyalty perspective, right? Like I'm not going to turn it away.
Right.
And so I think those are your entry points overall. But then I think the second point is when um, businesses start demanding payment in Bitcoin, or employees start demanding payment in Bitcoin, or vendors start demanding payment in Bitcoin. Like really, like that's what it takes, So like,
Let me ask you this. Okay.
yeah,
So we're talking about people who, let's talk about the Fed. Okay. Because they have now just come out today. They're buying junk bonds. They are buying junk bonds. David Milken went to jail for selling junk bonds, and now the government is buying them. Okay. So if the government is going to go out and buy junk bonds, when the hell somebody's going to say, hey, we're buying BTC? We're not that far away. Because if they're going to say junk bonds, and not this blew my mind. So I'm a little fired up about this, as you can tell. I'm sorry,
well,
but
so I read that in a headline, but do you know more about that, about them buying the junk bonds? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? Just is it to support those
I think it
junk?
is.
It's more from a supportive standpoint, not as like a
Yeah.
long-term investment. So it's basically like almost like a bailout. It's just bailing out from on buying the
Thank
junk
you.
bonds standpoint.
Yes. Yes. Basically, that's from my understanding. That's what it is. And so to me, it's like, wait a second. If you're going to buy these, which and everybody's calling them junk bonds, why don't you buy an asset that is proven, that is hard, that is, mathematically, fundamentally sound?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on here?
Right. Right. Yeah. It's that's definitely wild. It'll be really interesting. I remember in 2008 when I think it was like 700 billion came in, and that felt like a lot, right?
Mm,
And that was a lot, and now it's like that's nothing,
yeah.
is
That's one day.
yeah.
That's like, oh, hold on. There you go. There's your 7 billion. There you go.
Yeah,
It's easy. It's that easy, Jonathan.
no,
And you know what?
it's
It does go burr. If you listen really close, it does go burr.
I think that's one of my favorite things that has happened on crypto Twitter is
Right?
everybody. Do you have that in yours, in your Twitter
I
handle?
had it and then I took it out. Yeah, I
Oh,
had it
okay.
and then I took it out. But you know what? I think you just touch on something, that the meme culture is actually doing a lot to help educate folks and kind of take that message to people who might not get it right away. So I think the meme culture that we as crypto Twitter and the smart folks who are doing that, putting that out there, are really actually helping to educate in a really smaller, palatable kind of way. It's like the person at the end of the aisle when when you used to go to Costco and they used to give you those free samples and you try and like, oh, that's really good. And then you come back and you buy the whole thing, right? I think the memes kind of work in that same aspect. Like,
Hmm.
hey, here's a little sample. It's like a little, like, oh, and then they go and they find out more, and it leads to more, and it leads to more. The memes are like a gateway drug to crypto.
That's an interesting way to put it. I remember in high school, I had this teacher who he was just so fucking funny. And he would tell you stories about like battles, and he would just describe it like he was just a bro talk, not a bro,
Right,
but
yeah.
like just like a friend telling you like a story that he's excited about.
Yeah.
And you wanted to learn, like you wanted to like,
Yeah.
wait, tell me more, tell me more.
Right. What happened then?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, I think there's definitely a bunch of people on fire right now on crypto Twitter, and just lots of really good information out there. And what's been interesting too that I've liked is it's so honestly, I think like what CNBC has been putting out, which I don't know if they're intentionally trying to put out, but like what the owner of the Golden State Warriors said yesterday. Did
Oh
you see
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Chamath,
With
yeah.
Scott, Scott Wapner, the judge.
Yeah. And it was just crazy, right? Like he's like, should the airlines fail? It's like, yes, they should,
Yes, they should.
right? Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you know, maybe he wouldn't say that if it was his company. I don't know, but like it's wild that we live in a time where um, because look, no one can deny that coronavirus is something that is crazy from a financial standpoint, and it's
Sure.
completely eliminated uh, the stocks, or sorry, the values of companies and how
Yeah.
business operates. Like you can't deny that. But you also can't deny the path that we've been going on over the last several years. And if you have companies like Facebook, Apple, Amazon,
The
Microsoft,
fangs.
yeah, they each have like at least a $500 million on in cash,
Mm.
or sorry, $500,000 in cash. Just sorry, $500 million at least in cash. That's where I was going.
Okay.
And so it's like they're set up to withstand
Right.
heat, where not banks, but the airlines were using their cash on hand to buy more
Buy
stock.
back stock. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what pumped up the prices. And then the CEOs get the big, oh, hey, the stock prices are up. We get rewarded. Yay. And then
Right.
they all jump out back in January 2019, and they all get their parachutes. And
Yeah.
they're looking
So
for bailout.
right. So like if you or I do that with our own independent businesses, or whatever the equivalent of that would be, no one's going to come help us out with that. Right.
Right.
And so like, you like to think, hey, these are some sophisticated individuals. And you have to think that they were aware that, hey, something might be happening, not coronavirus, of course, but like, hey, like this can't last forever. And we see it time and time again that um, call it corporate greed, call it whatever you want,
Well, I mean,
but
I think
it's
one of the biggest indicators of that was just in the past few weeks, we saw the former head of BAC, Kelly Loeffler, now the newly appointed senator from Georgia. She and her husband, after coming out of that meeting on coronavirus, all of a sudden dumping shares and like, oh, look at how many senators and how many folks out of that meeting went and dumped shares. I mean, there was so much going on. This was
well,
ripe just a few weeks ago.
what's crazy about that too is, so in 2008 when that all happened with the mortgage-backed securities and so forth, that same thing happened, right? And so as
Yeah.
a result, and it was legal back then, like that was okay, like there wasn't a bad thing back then. So I think it was in 2012 where they're like, yo, you can't do this no more. And so it's not
Got to put the kibosh on that, man.
right. So it's like, you're definitely, if you're in that world, you're aware that you should not be doing that.
Yeah.
So going kind of on this realm, it's been really interesting for me to see just how passionate everybody on the blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto world has been about
Yeah.
COVID-19. Like you had people that were just aware of things going on well
Yeah.
before anybody else was, right? Like, why do
Right.
you think that is?
My theory is that because a lot of Bitcoin activity goes on in China, there's a lot of mining over there. So folks in the crypto world, they know people, they have friends there, they have relations, they have all those kinds of contacts. So they're going to hear that probably from the people on the ground first and foremost of like, hey, here's what's really going on. Here's what we're dealing with. And I
Mhm.
think that the crypto community is always forward looking. They're looking out ahead, right? We're not looking in the rear view mirror. We're kind of looking to we're building things for the future, and we're looking. So we have that mindset. Those are probably the two reasons why. What do you think?
Yeah, I think those are definitely two very ones. I think also like there's a lot of people that understand like virality, right? Like just
Mm-hmm.
from a user base standpoint, or like how like, people watch things or join things or whatever. And then you have
Yeah.
folks like Balaji who have just been like super ahead of the curve, all the way, right? So, anybody following him was like, this guy's been talking about it since probably early January, if not maybe even sooner. um and so, for me, and I remember you like mentioning stuff on Twitter like
Yeah.
in
January
January. You're like,
16th, man.
yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
hey, something crazy is happening. And yeah, it's wild, right? Because for me it was just more about like, hey, let me see what's happening in other places of the world, okay,
Yeah.
and let me see how they responded. Okay, let me see how we're responding. Oh shit, this is gonna
Right.
be shitty.
Right.
This is
This
gonna
is
be bad.
exactly. That's the same. That's how I started looking at it too. Like you, man. This is what's happening in China, and it's coming.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's wild. There's definitely like some tinfoil hat theories out there, but like
Sure.
regardless of what.
And I propagate a lot of those, so I'm sorry. Those all
Well,
come from my bedroom.
regardless of what, I had to explain to my friend what a tinfoil hat is. He's like, what's a tinfoil hat? I'm like, you don't know what that is? He's like, no. I'm like, imagine a guy
Oh
wearing a
man,
tinfoil hat and then
he looks pretty ridiculous.
making some predictions or talking
This
to
hat has
things.
tinfoil on the inside right now. You can't see it. That's why I wear these hats.
Yeah.
I got the tinfoil on the inside.
What's been really interesting about this is, 9/11 gave us the Patriot Act, right? 9/11 was a
Mm-hmm.
tragic event, and then there was some Patriot Acts, so some of our civil liberties got taken away as
Sure.
a result of it. And it's like, hey, like, well, you should be willing to give up your civil liberties like to stop terrorism. Okay, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I can see why someone would say that. Now
Sure.
we're in a new version of that, right? Where
Yep.
the second headline in CNBC right now is, or third, or third is, Apple, Google team up to track coronavirus spread using iPhone and Android apps.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, on the surface, that's a great idea. I totally see it. But like, but where? Wait a
But
second. Wait a
this is
second.
rather dystopian and Orwellian at
Well,
best.
and then, totally. And then how do you end up using that information against me later? And the argument to that would be like, well, stay in your house, like, and then you don't have
Yeah.
anything to worry about. It's
Yeah.
like,
You have nothing to hide, right? Oh.
right. It's like, no, no, you're right. I will. I'll continue to stay in my house. I still don't want, my
Well, that's
data.
why I just turn my phone off and leave it at home, and then I just go outside and like whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, come get me.
I just
But
break
they
my
will.
phone, like in those TikToks where like the kid runs over and like just breaks the phone. No, no, but it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely something to be aware of, and people need to think about and consider, is like, hey, you know obviously these things are important, but we also need to make sure that we still maintain our privacy, with what we do. And
Yeah.
there's things like decentralized identity and things like that that I think will become more and more interesting as we go through these times.
Is the possibility of at least doing some kind of voting on the blockchain going to be moving forward now in light of this pandemic and the situation that we find ourselves in, especially in an election year?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's anytime soon. I think one of the interesting things about voting on blockchain is really where the biggest benefit, to, in my opinion, lies is in the read aspect of it, but
Mm,
not the write aspect of it. Like the writing, like, so the writing of data to the blockchain versus the reading of data to the blockchain, right? And
gotcha.
so, I think that's personally, just from my knowledge and what I've studied, and my thought point on some of these things is, probably why a lot of people say that blockchain sucks or isn't ready or whatever, is it's the writing side of it, and like the data
Mm,
size, and do people need access and these sort of things. My argument's always been, is like, just because something isn't ready today doesn't mean it's not ready tomorrow or in a hypothetical
sure.
future, because like you could have said that for any technology. And I still am a Bitcoin, bull regardless, but I do think there's something interesting, over on this side.
Yeah. Security layers for Bitcoin. Anything that you're hearing from folks in the community on that development, Lightning Network, etc.?
To be honest, I'm not.
There's Taproot and Snore, right? Those are the two that I know have come to mind. Are you hearing any developments?
I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar on the security aspects of things. What do you hear?
Well, I hear very little because I'm a crypto idiot, and if people tell me stuff, I'll go and put it on Twitter and be like, "Oh, here's what they're doing." So that's why nobody tells me anything, Jonathan. Because I run my mouth like I have legs for lists. I'm a DJ. Nobody's going to tell me. That's why I ask you, and I listen to your podcast and come to your events because you get the people. That's
No,
why.
You put on a good show because you know way more than you let on.
Well, you're doing the day drinking today over there, friend, not
actually,
me.
Well, so it's funny actually. That makes me think of something. So on Twitter a while ago, because like people say like don't let anybody know how much Bitcoin you have, like never let or even that you even have Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so Jason Williams posted something about Bitcoin. And so I don't remember what it was, but I responded to him and I got roasted for it. It was really funny. And I was like, I don't have any Bitcoin, never will, like just none of it. Blah, blah. And it was basically like tongue in cheek to that.
Sure.
And people are like, what are you thinking? And blah, blah, blah. It was pretty funny, actually.
That's the old Peter Schiff deniability. Like, OPSEC, I don't own any. Got lost, got stolen. Sorry.
Right. I do have.
Sorry, I lost it.
I may or may not have some, but
yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I do.
That's what makes it so great, though.
What's that?
I said that's what makes Bitcoin so great, right? Is I can have it in my control.
Yeah, and see I think that's the thing that, again, no government can take it from you. They can't make any more of it. They can't just willy-nilly, like I said, hey, here we go, more Bitcoin, woo, right? We're not doing that. You can't do that with Bitcoin. It doesn't go burr.
No.
Blocks don't do that. And so that's why I love it. You can't debase it because you look over the history of money throughout all civilizations, from all the way back to the Roman Empire up till now, the monetary systems have always been debased, right? They used to chip away little bits of the silver and gold of the coin, right? Back in the Roman days.
Yeah.
I heard that on a podcast. Maybe it was yours. I don't know. But that's true, dude. They did that.
Yeah.
So with Bitcoin, they can't do it. And that's why I love it, because then people, the antithesis people will say, well, they could just say, make another Bitcoin. Well, no, they can't. Yeah, sure. It's open source code. Sure. Go ahead. Good luck. But you have one person running a node. That's you. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin network's got how many millions of people running nodes and has been doing it longer and better than you have. So go ahead and copy the code and be a freak and start your own Bitcoin fork. Ask Roger Ver how that worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their halving just happened. There you go.
Bcash.
Sorry.
Did you ever see that video, by the way? Have you ever seen that video?
Btrash?
No, Bcash, the Bcash video.
Which one? There's a few of them. Which one are you talking about?
No, just where he loses it because someone calls it Bcash.
Yes. And he's all, is he doing this one? Yeah. That's classic. That's some classic 2018 crypto Twitter right there, man. The old days of crypto Twitter, man. Then in 2017. That was when I came. When did you first get into to Bitcoin and crypto Twitter? When was your first?
It was like late 2016, early 2017. So like I had paid attention to Bitcoin just on the fringes. I didn't take it seriously, regretfully. Regretfully, I didn't take it seriously. I had some friends that were pretty into it, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And I wish I would have listened back then. And then, I just was like, holy cow, like this just makes so much sense. And, I have a couple family members that are a little bit tinfoil hat. And so, and more of like the, like, hey, like you should have, and what's interesting, cause like, it's more about the, hey, you should have access to like your own stuff, and like you shouldn't have to depend on someone that's gonna like that could potentially take that away from you. And so when I first started hearing about Bitcoin, I was like, oh, this is really interesting, being able to have your own self-sovereignty of your your wealth. Although I do think what will be interesting is as Bitcoin evolves, And as it becomes more mainstream, you have these people on even on the Bitcoin front. They're like, hey, you have to be fully in control of your Bitcoin and this and that, and then everybody will somehow use it within each other. I just don't see that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's an ideal scenario, but it's too that makes it too niche, and you could say that for for anything. Like I actually played in that poker thing last night, for example, and it was great. It was a great event, and so you could pay with like Bitcoin or you could pay with cash. And so I like kind of going back to what we talked about is it's like as people demand what they want to be paid in
Right,
is how that will dictate how things get used. And because of that, it has to be done. It has to be easy, right? Because
right, yeah,
uh, you
right,
know our parents are not going to be buying Bitcoin on an
right.
exchange. It's just not
And
happening.
that's why personally, I don't get any endorsement or I don't get anything, but that's why personally for me, coming from a completely idiotic retail side, I find Cash App to be one of the most easiest ways to buy and on ramp folks into the Bitcoin community. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the UX, the UI is smooth, it's flawless, AML, KYC, easy to do. You're in and you're boom right there. It's so easy. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles for folks is that like, oh, these long keys and who's this? Oh my gosh, going to, and
Yeah.
I got to check 37 numbers and digits.
No, I agree. Actually, and the other thing, I think the other thing about Cash App too is that I don't. We need to talk to them about sponsoring this because they're
Yeah,
not.
we do, man. Come on, Cash App.
Yeah, but I think the other interesting thing about Cash App overall is, like you're saying, it's super easy to use, but it's actually
Yeah.
the price is right. I mean, like
Yes.
it's not overinflated. I compare it to other things. I'm like, okay, this is like falls right in line, and the fees are reasonable
Yeah,
too.
I find the fees are actually cheaper than some of the other places.
Yeah.
And so
The
for
one
me, I'm like, yeah.
the one thing that's the only shitty thing about Cash App is when you're trying to send Bitcoin, you can't send in dollar denominations. Have you noticed
Oh, so
that?
you have to know how many sats. No, because I never send really big to
Yeah.
people. I did like one giveaway and I did that, but and I think I did it from the Cash App. You're right, but yeah, you got to know. That's why it's important to know your sat nav.
There you go. But that's the only thing that, and I don't know why they don't do that, but that's the only
They
thing.
can
But
probably.
what's that?
Well,
They
but
could
see,
add
here's
that
the
easy.
thing though. But here's the thing. I think that some of us in the community, like we need to get away from that paradigm of thinking of Bitcoin in terms of dollars. We need to start thinking of it just in terms of its own thing because you know
I
that
know.
that
I know what you're saying there, and part of me agrees with you, and part of me doesn't agree with you. Like, it's kind of the way I look at it. It's like when you go to Mexico, and you can
yeah.
buy things in dollars or you can buy things in pesos. Like
Hmm.
you still need that, right? Like you still need that because like that's just what regardless if you're using dollars or pesos, like you whatever denomination that you're
You
in.
use that as the metric to measure.
Yeah, but I do like that idea, obviously, of like you pay in Bitcoin or sorry, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin uh,
Yeah.
overall. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyways, Cash App's super easy, and it's yeah, I like it.
Absolutely. Yay for Cash App. Now let's get them on board. Then we can give away satoshis.
Yeah, I like that plan. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, last thing. What else? What do we want to talk about before we wrap up? Anything you want to leave people with as they go about their good day, their Good Friday?
Uh, you know, I'm just my big thing that I'm really excited about is the halving. This is my first one. I think we kind of covered this, but I'm just gonna put it in a little bow for you. We're 30 some odd days out. I don't know. Nobody really seems to know whether it's priced in or not. So this is not advice. This is my strategy. How I'm looking at this is that I'm gonna have some dry powder on the side just in case it does dip. That way, I'm going to be able to get some cheap, and if it does continue to go up, then I'll just continue to dollar cost average it. So that's my way of looking at it the next 30 days. I felt really fortunate that like I didn't buy here at 73 when I was like it's probably going to go back down. So I felt good there. But I think that these next 30 days, there's still some great opportunity, and have dry powder if you can. That's how I'm looking to play this thing.
Yeah, yeah. And if it goes to 100,000, I don't think you'll care if you bought it at 73 or 68.
No, well, no, you're right. You're right. I won't, and I get that, but
I know what you mean
just,
though. Yeah,
yeah,
obviously you want as much as you can get. Why not?
exactly.
Yeah, why not do
Exactly.
it?
What about
Um,
you? What do you want to leave folks with? Last thought.
last thought is, man, I think the last thought I want to leave everybody with is that like it's actually has nothing to do with Bitcoin and nothing to do with Corona, but more just like everybody on a human element. It's
Mm,
I think one thing I've learned in this time for me and is that like just how important it is to make sure that you're keeping up with some of your relationships. Giving people
yeah.
calls, giving people phone calls you haven't talked to in a little while,
Not
and
getting drunk and forgetting to call people back. You
yeah,
mean?
not
Yeah.
yeah, not doing
That.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Sorry.
uh,
Guilty.
um, but more is like also kind of being a little bit more, I want to say easier on folks, right? It's like,
Mm,
uh, it's not a snow day. So if you're feeling bummed or tired or sad or overwhelmed or anxious, like it's it's
yeah.
it's actually okay. I mean, it's who am I to judge if you feel that way anyway? But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, um, you know, just make sure that you're consistently taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, and trying to take care of your money. And I think the more you learn about Bitcoin, um, the more you can get help with that last one. So this
Yeah,
is my
man.
thought.
Take care of your money. That's how we do it, baby. It does
Yeah,
go burr.
it does. It
It does go
does.
burr.
I gotta get
Jonathan
one of
Blanco.
those.
Yeah, man.
Matt
They're
Case.
online. You can get it for they're like only like $30.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I want to get one of those.
I,
Get some of my Venezuelan bolivares. Put them in there.
yes, that's right. Your bolivars. Is that what they call them? What do they call them?
Bolivares. But yeah, bolivar.
Bolivares.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right,
All
friend.
right,
You have a great day.
you too. What's the best way that people can stay in touch with you?
Right there on the crypto Twitter at Matthew Ryan Case.
All right,
Troll
Matthew
me,
Rankis.
comment, whatever.
All right, I'm gonna troll you when we're done here. Everybody else, thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this new format for today, the weekly roundup. Maybe we'll do this again if you like it. And for those listening, make sure that you're following us across all the channels: YouTube, podcast channels, Twitter. We're at TF Blockchain. See you all soon. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, smash that like button.